We're kind of in a mini-series about money, about giving, about possessions, and God's purpose behind the things that we are blessed with, whether it be gifts, talents, whether it be money or just opportunities. How we use it speaks volumes about our priorities in our spirituality, and how we deal with our finances and the possessions that we have also affects our spiritual relationship with God. When you look at Malachi, it's a minor prophet, and when we say minor prophet, it's not because he's a lesser prophet than Moses or Isaiah or Jeremiah, but it's because the book is shorter. That's all that is meaning. But Malachi was talking to the Israelites as a nation, as a people. And here's what you have to understand. And I don't know if you guys experience this when you think about our nation or maybe your own family or your own spiritual life, but there's seasons when it seems like God has abandoned you, or there's seasons where it seems like God is distant, or there's times when things all seem to be going downhill and everything seems to be falling apart. And for the Israelites, there were many seasons like this. They would be faithfully running after God, but then they would kind of wander and stray, and all kinds of disaster would hit them. Enemies would invade and sometimes subjugate them as an entire nation. Sometimes famine would hit and their peoples would be starving. It just seemed like if we're the people of God, why are these things happening to us? And sometimes maybe as a Christian family, you may even go through seasons where you're going like, why are all these bad things happening? Why are things not working out the way that it should if we're truly the people of God? And so this message really is talking about people who claim, who say, God, you are my master. You are my Lord. You're the one that I depend upon. So if we say that, then there's some consequences. There's some things. There's some responsibilities, but there's also some blessings that we kind of associate with that with. And God lays that out in the Old Testament. He says, if you'll follow me, I will always provide for you. If you'll follow me, I'll always protect you. If you follow me, I will always go before you. But the problem is not God's promise, because here he says, I do not change. But it's that we continually stop following and stray. One of the things that's amazing to me is that we don't understand the spiritual nature of money, of possessions. I remember when I was doing a premarital class, and then when at seminary and learning about how to counsel people before marriage. And this is when I was still single and stuff like that. I remember one of my seminary professors saying that for a lot of couples, money is a huge struggle on how to use it and stuff of that nature. And he made this one little short story. I don't know, it was maybe somebody who was in Hollywood, or maybe it was someone that was a little more famous, and said, one of the things that's a sure sign of a marriage that's going to struggle is that when they have any kind of prenuptial agreement whatsoever dealing with money. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? A prenuptial agreement is all before you get married. There's an agreement that both of you sign, apart from the marriage contract, apart from everything else, that says that in the event, of course we'll never get divorced, but in the event we get divorced, here's how we're going to divide up the assets. Here's how there's going to be no battle. And California is no-fault divorce. Did you guys know that? California no-fault divorce means is that for any reason or no reason whatsoever, one side can choose to divorce the other, and it's all legal and it'll all end up happening. I mean, it may take a little time, but that's what it means in California. So for whatever reason or no reason at all, she burned my breakfast. He left the toilet seat up, or I'm tired of this, or whatever. We need a divorce. And so people knowing how frequently the statistics about people getting divorced sometimes go into the marriage thinking, okay, we need a contract just in case, because we're realists, we're romantic, and we're hopelessly in love with each other. But we may be one of the statistics, so we're going with prenuptial, especially when there's a lot of finances involved. Poor people don't have prenuptials because you came with nothing, you leave with nothing. Okay, same thing. Well, a lot of rich people do. Especially when they marry someone who's not so rich. You guys get what I'm saying? And here's the point that my professor was making. He said this: when you truly are all in with someone, then everything comes in. But when you're not, the first thing that a lot of people think about is, how do I hold on to some of my possessions? How do I hold on to someone? How do I keep that back? And that exact heart is what God is talking about here to the Israelites. You guys don't love me. I'm all in. God's saying to the Israelites, I'm all in. I'm going to be your God. I'm going to give everything to you. I don't change. My heart, my love doesn't change. And that's why you're not destroyed as a nation. That's why you're not consumed as a nation. But you guys aren't all in. You're always hedging your bets. You're always putting a little bit aside. You always have an idol hidden somewhere. You always want to worship more than one God. Think about that. And what a prenuptial says is, oh, I love you completely, but there's a part of me that says, just in case, I want to be prepared. You see what I'm getting at? And this is why the analogy of marriage, and the only way for marriage to work, and the right way, is till death do us part. It's always meant to be that way. I know things happen. I know we're human. I know we break down. I know there's sin. I'm just saying, the kind of mental attitude that we need to live our lives with comes out here in Malachi, comes out here when we're talking about marriage, comes out here when we're talking about commitment and relationships. And this morning, I want to talk about something that maybe I don't talk about enough, but it's about tithe. And the thing about the tithe is that the Bible makes it very clear that we are to bring, and for the Israelites, they were an agricultural nation. Everything, thousands of years ago was always agricultural. It's how much produce you had. And he said, whatever you harvest, the first fruits, the first part of it, whether it's livestock or produce, the first tenth of it, you're supposed to dedicate it to God and bring it to God. And they would bring it to the temples, and the Levites and the ones that were priests that did not work in the same way, that were serving in the temple, would receive that as their portion, as part of what we still do within the church to a certain extent, if you think about it. But why does God ask for the tithe? Yeah, maybe to provide for the Levites, the tribe that's going to be ministering in behalf of the people before God. But God doesn't need our money. God doesn't need one dime from you. The reason why he asks for the tithe is the effect and the impact it has upon all of us. Those of us who profess to follow after Christians. For me, people who are checking out the church, who are not committed, who do not know God completely yet, there's no reason for you to tithe. There's no reason. Because you're not involved in a committed relationship with the Lord. But if you are, then there is a reason. And let me give you 3 simple lessons this morning. I don't want to belabor this too much, but I want to make it simple because I want you to leave with it in your mind, and I want you to think about it. But I want to give you 3 reasons why God pushes. There's a lot more, but let me give you 3 general, broad reasons that come out of Malachi why God says you need to tithe. The first and foremost, I'm already alluding to it, is because of this. In giving the first portion, not after you pay all your bills, not after you take care of all your necessities and your wants, and go, oh, I still have 10% left over. No, not like that. But the first part is because by doing that, we build our faith. We are declaring that we trust God's faithfulness and his power over our own power. Or if you will, our own ability to get rid of our fear. Because why do we have health insurance? Why do we have car insurance? Why do we have homeowners insurance? Because we're hedging our bets for when a bad day happens, for our fears. When something terrible happens. That's what it's for. But when we give the first portion to God, we're saying, God, I'm not going to depend on money. I'm not going to depend upon insurance first. Still have insurance. I'm not saying not have insurance. But what I'm saying is God, I trust in your providence and your love for me and your faithfulness more than money's ability to provide me security. Insurance's ability to provide me security. And this is a huge thing. It is really huge. Because there's going to be times in your life when everything is going well, financially, economically, with your job, in your family. And so it's very easy to give to the church. It's very easy to tithe. It's very easy to trust God. But then what if you lose the job? And what if this happens? And then your resources become tight. And you're supposed to give less money because your resources are tight, but still giving 10% is now painful as compared to when you had more. That's the test, and that's the challenge. Do you really trust in God's faithfulness or not? And it's in those moments our faith and trust in God has an opportunity to grow. But what happened with the Israelites? They turned away. They were a mess. Politically, as a nation, they were taken captive and enslaved by other nations. Why? Because as a nation, they weren't being faithful to God. To me, it's fascinating because God doesn't say, return to me by repenting and kneeling in prayer. There's times when he says that. He doesn't say, return to me by doing what's right and obeying all the laws. He specifically singles out and says, stop robbing me. That's what he says. Now, I said to you earlier, God doesn't need any of our money, right? I mean, come on. God doesn't need it. He can use it to bless us. But why does God say we're robbing him? Well, obviously the Levites wouldn't get what their full share was necessary. But you know what we're robbing God of? The second thing I want to point out to you, when we don't tithe and when we don't put that mentality that God, everything is yours, and I'm going to give the first fruit of all these things to you, we rob God of the opportunity to bless us. We rob God of the opportunity to provide for us. When you put yourself in a situation where you're not in control, where you don't have all the security, everything lined up, that's when you give opportunity for God to do miraculous things, to do things to fill in and bridge the impossible gap that you cannot bridge. Right now, there's 18 of us going to Indonesia. Let me just put it this way. There's 4 older adults, and there's some college students, and there's a bunch of youth kids. In the beginning, before some of the moms decided to go, I thought, holy cow, how am I going to go with 14 college and young? I was kind of dreading it to a certain extent. One thing I want to tell you about going to another, I've been to a bunch of these mission trips and stuff like that. This is going to be pretty short. We're going to a Muslim nation. We're going, I don't know, by, at least in my mind, halfway around the world, right? Somewhere where I've never been, somewhere where no one in our team has ever been. And we're going to meet some missionaries there, and they're going to support. So that's great, there's a structure there, but I haven't face-to-face met any of them. It's a big unknown. Literally, anytime you travel, it's unknown, of course. But the thing I love about mission trips is, even though maybe it's imagine the security that we have here, because we always say you can walk across the street, get hit by a car, and life changes. You can get sick, the next morning and wake up and something's changed. Your company can close down or whatever, your livelihood. But the thing I love about this kind of mission trip thing is that we actually put ourselves way outside of our comfort zone. And this is why a lot of people, when they do go on mission trips, experience something very interesting. A dependence on God that they couldn't experience as clearly here at home. To be in a predominantly Muslim country is definitely something unusual. To be somewhere where you don't know the native language, you don't know the foods, you don't know the cultures and the customs. I don't know. It always cracks me up because always all the people that are going on the trip, I don't know if they trust me, but there's always those. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do there? Where are we going to be? Where are we going to sleep? And a lot of times I'm a little more vague about it, not because I don't know. Actually, I know, but because how does that change anything? We're going to be staying at da-da-da set hotel. We're going to be eating this food at this restaurant. We're going to be at this school. Oh, great. So how does that change and give you peace of mind? It does. The peace of mind must come because God is going with us and we're going for His purposes. I can tell you one thing about mission trips. Even if we're not very well equipped, even if we're not super spiritual, even if we're not holy Christians, when we do go step out in faith to actually love people and share the gospel with them in our limited, ineffectual, not very, capable ways, but at least we're stepping out and doing something. God is with us. Just you may not feel like it. We're robbing God of an opportunity to bless us when we don't trust Him beyond our own ability to have security and our own ability to prepare. That's the amazing thing. Here's what God says through Malachi. You are cursed with a curse. Verse 9. For you are robbing me, the whole nation, of you. Bring the full tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house for the priests, and thereby put me to the test, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open the windows of heaven for you and pour down for you a blessing until there is no more need. I will rebuke the devourer for you, so that it will not devour and destroy the fruits of your soil, and your vine in the field shall not fail to bear, says the Lord of hosts. Don't rob God of the opportunity. It's such an important thing that we need to understand. We need to trust God and not. That's what it is. The final point I want to make to you, this is going to be really short to you, is this. God says what in verse 10? Bring the full tithe into the storehouse. I thought about that. I thought, what does it mean, full tithe? Bring the full 10%. Well, if you bring 9%, isn't that not a tithe? I mean, I was just kind of thinking, that's my engineering, mathematical side, if you will. And so I kind of, looked at some commentaries, I thought about it, and what is God saying? Obviously, He's saying, we can do what we call loose approximations and estimates. But God's saying, be very precise and accurate. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Do you ever have a friend like this where you lend them like a certain amount of money? I don't know how you are, but for me, I always pay them exactly or give them the change to round up to the next dollar. But there's always other friends who will borrow like $10.99 or whatever, or they forget about the tax or the tip from splitting them. I don't even really say anything, but it bugs me not because I'm bugged by the couple of bucks, but it bugs me because to me that indicates something in their character that's not right. I know some of us are more just like easygoing and we're not even thinking about it, but when they do it every single time, there's something wrong. Okay? Use Venmo with them. I don't know. $10.21 or whatever, When God says full tithe, what He's saying is, don't be loose in your attitude about this. Be very determined and consistent. Be very diligent and precise in this area. Why? Because if you're not, it's so easy in the down times, in the stressful, difficult times, to just kind of gloss over. There's a consistency factor that has been in my heart that God's been working in my heart for so many years, and it's really hard because that's not the kind of person I am. Some of you are. Some of you are so good at this, but for those of us who find it harder, it is one of the keys to spirituality. It is one of the keys to maturity. It is one of the keys to being blessed and successful in every facet of your life. It's knowing what's important, especially from the eyes of God, and being incredibly consistent and diligent in it, not because you're legalistic, but because You don't want to rob God. You want to just obey and be as immediately obedient to God as possible because you know He loves you. You absolutely trust that. That's what it's about. And that's why God says, bring the full tithe. Don't be loosey-goosey about this. Be consistent. Be precise. Do it the first day when you have a chance. February of 2011. That's when my wife was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And 3 days later, she was going to have surgery after she got diagnosed on Friday, and she went on Monday. And I remember that weekend, she was like busy. I said, what are you so busy about? She said, I'll let you know. And Sunday night, she called me over. She had this list. She had a big purse that females had these big purses. All her makeup was removed from the purse. Her purse was still all stuff. So checkbook and all these kids stuff. And just everything she carries around, daily necessities. All the emergency first aid stuff. So she had a list and she handed me her purse. So I used to carry that around for a few months after that. But after her surgery, she started keeping it. So I'd lug it when I was heavy. And the first thing that she pulled out was the checkbook. And she said, okay, because she always took care of the bills at that time. So she said, okay, here's tithe checks for the next couple of months. I wrote them all out in my head. All you have to do is take one and the offering basket. Another one the right day, and the offering basket. Because I never did the offering because I'm the one in front preaching and stuff like that. So she would just take care of it. I'm like, honey, don't worry about it. I'll take care of everything on the list. And I'm not saying she intentionally made that first, but it was high on her mind. Part of it was we both grew up in families that did this. We made it a priority, and so it's kind of ingrained in us. Another part of it is that even in this, probably the lowest time in our life for us together, she was still saying, God, you're my God. You're the one that we trusted, not the doctor, not the surgery, not anything else. And as I was thinking about that, I go, you know what? It is such a powerful spiritual experience. Because, see, I could have said, honey, think about where we're at right now. Honestly, God will understand. And He would. If our time got backed up a little bit and I forgot to put it in. Because, man, would I be distracted? I think even God would understand and say, hey, let's save up that 10% just for a rainy day kind of a thing. But she was insistent. And I didn't even think twice about it. I said, yeah, of course. Why? Because we had been in a habit of it, and it was something that came naturally to us, and something that I want you to understand, I think gave us the strength, at least part of it, reminded us that we trusted in God, gave us the strength through that difficult time. Do you guys understand? Keeping up those minutiae, still going to the regular, church for worship, still doing your devotional, still giving your tithe, still doing, because it's easy when things all fall apart to break out of the routines and forget what's important for a while. And so this whole thing about tithing and money is so much more important. Let me just give you a couple of practical advice. If you're a believer, if you're a Christian, it's not an easy thing if you haven't been ready. I'm just going to tell you this truth. And so for a lot of you, it may be something very painful to begin to do. If you're a Christian and you're, connected to this church and whatnot. And so I would say it's perfectly okay in God's eyes, at least in my mind, to ramp up to it. I still think God is faithful, and you can just jump into it and you'll be blessed and you'll be amazed. Maybe it'll be a little tight, but man, I think there'll be some blessings that they'll come into your life. And you will not be less for it, even financially. For those of you who are in college or aren't making any money right now, go, well, okay, that just lets me out. I don't make any money. The Bible says first fruits. You know what that means to me? And I say this to college students and people who are not making money. I say, do you spend your money? So for college students, every $10 of pizza, $1 to whatever church you're at when you're in college. I'm being kind of joking, but I'm being serious. So forego one slice of pizza. Go to a movie, okay? Forego one movie out of 10. Because people say, oh, anybody else is poor, but this is what I mean by the full tithe. They spend money on themselves, but they forget about God, because I'm not making any money. Well, where are you getting that money to use? It's coming from somewhere. I'm not saying you tithe your tuition money or these kind of, but I'm just saying that in that sense. It's a pretty simple rule. People who are retired, they go, oh, I'm not making any money either. I said, well, there's nobody here that's retired. But same thing. What are you making? What are you using? It's not that. I'm always blessed because my parents really gave us a good lesson and example for this. And I'm sure many of your parents did as well. But understand that the money and the tithing, there's a deeper reason God's saying, I want to bless you. And the final thing that he says that's amazing to me in this passage is this. He says, I'm going to provide for you, I'm going to protect you, I'm going to make you bear fruit. He says, then all nations will call you blessed. Our Christians is because they don't see us doing extraordinary things. And one of the extraordinary things that we can do as Christians is to demonstrate by the way we live how important our God is to us. It's funny, one of my best friends from high school, junior high school till now, he's a devout Catholic. I always just pray for him that he'll end up in heaven as a Catholic. That's fine. I remember a conversation we had when we were older and we were talking about stuff, and he said, people in your church really tithe. Do you tithe? The person said, yeah, I do. And I said, really? And so he's like a leader within a Catholic church, a large Catholic church. And I was talking, I said, don't the Catholics tithe? He goes, well, we probably give like a certain amount, much smaller than a tithe. But when we die, we do endowments. That's what he said. And I said, why do you guys wait till then? He said, well, to be perfectly honest, I think it's because of the fear of purgatory. So in Catholic theology, there's purgatory. So depending on how you live and how you were living when you died, you have to spend a certain amount of time in purgatory, which is not a very pleasant place before you go to heaven. But if you donate a lot, then that offsets the number. There's not a formula. Well, I think the reasons, at least for me, the reason we Christians tithe is because we know we're going to heaven, and it's all by God's grace. And it's my confession, even though my faith is weak, that God, you're the one. You're the Father. You're the one I trust. You're the one I depend on. This is what I do. And I think that something went on in his head, almost, but not quite, but it was kind of a fun conversation. The world is sick. The world sleeps. Why are you gone every Sunday morning for a few hours or longer? They wonder, where are you giving your money and using your money? Sometimes they'll ask. It's really? Why? That's to proclaim the gospel. I want people to look at Christians in general, especially in our society, and say, why are things going so well for you? How do you get through these difficult times so well? Why do you seem to never have want? Why does your family seem so blessed and happy? You know what? It's because we trust in God. Not in insurance, not in money, not in these things. That's why we're peace. If we understand that truth, then we'll understand what God is talking about when he says tithe. It's not about the money. It's about the spiritual effect that it has on us. I want to encourage you. Let's not rob God. Let's trust him beyond anything else. Let's pray together this morning. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for reminding us again that